Okay, so we're going to look at example 5A and example 5C. So we're going to look at A and C. These are the last ones on this notes. And those are the last ones I'm going to walk you through. So A says to determine if x minus 5 is a factor of p of x. Our p of x equation is already given to us. It is x cubed plus 2x squared minus 11x minus 12. And we want to determine if x minus 5 is a factor. So remember, for it to be a factor, that means we can get the 0 from it. So if x minus 5 is a factor of our equation, that means that x equals 5 is a 0 of our equation. Okay? And this is all hypothetical still because we don't know if x minus 5 is a factor. We're trying to figure it out. But if x minus 5 was a factor, then that means that x equals 5 would be a 0. And if we use synthetic substitution with 5, our remainder should be 0, right? Because if our remainder is 0, that means that that number is a 0. So if we use 5 for synthetic substitution, if 5 is a 0, then we should get a remainder of 0, or we should get 0 at the end. And if we do, then that means that x minus 5 is a factor. If we don't, that means that x minus 5 is not a factor. Okay, and it's important to remember that our factor was x minus 5, but the x we're going to use to solve this equation is positive 5. And just keep that in mind. When your factor is x minus a number, or x minus 5, that means your 0 is 5, the opposite. So we would do 5 on the outside. And our coefficients, I have 1, 2, negative 11, and negative 12. So 1, 2, negative 11, negative 12. I'll bring down my first number. So I have 1 down here. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. 5 times 7 is 35. Negative 11 plus 35 is 24. Okay, I'm not doing that in my head. I'm using the calculator. You need to use the calculator too. Don't mess up because you're trying to do it in your head. Negative 11 plus 35 is positive 24. And then 5 times 24 is 120. Negative 12 plus 120 gives me 108. So that means that f of 5 equals 108. Okay? So since f of 5 did not equal 0, that means that x equals 5 is not a 0. So x equals 5 or actually I'm going to write it as, we're going to write it as f of 5 does not equal 0. So x minus 5 is not a factor of f of x. If f of 5 did equal 0, then it would be a factor. But since it didn't, if f of 5 did equal 0, then x minus 5 would be a factor. But it didn't, so x minus 5 is not a factor. Okay? Nothing changed. Nothing changed. I'm going to put a question mark here so you don't get confused because x minus 5 was not a 0. That's the question we were trying to answer. But nothing changed in the work we were doing. We just needed to use synthetic substitution with 5. And then our answer, we just need to be able to know how to interpret that answer. Okay, so the last one for C, we're going to work that one out. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I'll pause real quick and let you try to do B. So try to solve for B. So we would be looking for F. What did I color it in? So we would be looking for F of, our factor is x plus 4, so we would be looking for F of negative 4. And we would set it up the same way. I have negative 4 on the outside now instead of the 5. Then 1, 2, negative 11, negative 12. Bring down my 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2. Negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. Negative 11 plus 8 is negative 3. And negative 4 times negative 3 is 12. And then negative 12 plus positive 12 is 0. So I ended with 0. So since F of a negative 4 equals 0, that means negative 4 is a 0. So that means x plus 4 is a factor. So F of negative 4 does equal 0. So x plus 4 is a factor of f of x. Okay, so now let's look at 5C. So something I didn't tell y'all yet is that this remainder, it's important to us. We've been using this remainder to be able to solve these problems. But something else is that these numbers are also important to us. Okay? So if we were to do synthetic division, synthetic substitution and synthetic division are the same thing. It's just with synthetic substitution, we're just looking at this last number. With synthetic division, it's the same work, the same setup and everything. We just want to look at all of these numbers. Okay, so something you might not have noticed is I have these numbers, 1, negative 2, and negative 3, and then 0. 0 told us that x plus 4 was a factor because I got a remainder of 0. Okay? But what does the 1, negative 2, and negative 3 mean? Those are still our coefficients. So like these were coefficients. These are still going to be our coefficients. So I have a coefficient of 1, negative 2, negative 3, and 0. We don't have to put the 0 because 0 times anything is 0, but let's just go ahead and use it for now. Okay, so in our original p of x equation, up here, I've been calling it f of x this whole time, but p of x, I started off with x cubed plus 2x squared minus 11x minus 12. So I started with my highest exponent and I worked my way down. So these coefficients represent these terms that I still have. So I was originally had the x cubed and I divided by an x. Altogether, I divided by x plus 4. But I divided by an x. So if I had x cubed divided by an x, the highest exponent I would have is x squared. So these coefficients line up with, I started with x cubed. Remember, I started with x cubed, and I divided by an x, so I took one away. So now I'm at x squared. So that's what my coefficients line up with. So this is x squared, this is x, this is just our whole number, and then this is nothing. So that's why I said we shouldn't even have to write it. So now my equation is 1x squared, or just x squared, minus 2x minus 3. Okay, I'm going to erase what's on top just so I have room to write. I'm just erasing this. So it should make sense, but if not, all I'm saying is that we already did the division, so I don't need to do it again. All I'm saying is that x cubed, our original equation, so x cubed plus 2x squared minus 11x minus 12, correct? Divided by our factor, so divided by x plus 4 equals what we had left. So x squared minus 2x minus 3. So that means our equation p of x, and if at any point you get overwhelmed or you think you don't understand, pause the video, think about it for a little bit, or pause the video and go back and re-listen to it. But p of x, which is this, that means that p of x equals x plus 4 and x squared, or x plus 4 times x squared minus 2x minus 3. Boom. And we want to find the zeros. That's what C is asking us to find, the zeros. So I wanted to get it in factored form first to be able to find the zeros. And I was showing y'all that we didn't have to go back. Normally, in the notes that we did from Monday, if you're in 2nd or 4th, or on Tuesday if you're in 5th, in those notes, we had to go back and divide our equation by our factor to get this. But I was showing y'all we already had that here. We don't have to go back and do it. So I need to get it in factored form, like I said, to find the zeros. This is not in factored form because I have this x squared and all of this. So to get it in factor form, remember what two numbers multiply to -3 but add to -2. And that would be ... -3 and 1, right? -3 times 1 is -3, and -3 plus 1 is -2. So that means that p of x equals x plus 4, and then x minus 3, and then x plus 1. And that's in factored form. We want to find the zeros. So then the zeros are x equals -4, x equals 3, and x equals -1.